Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and sitting across from me is a man who's smiling. It's Alexi Lalas. Hello.
I'm smiling because, as I'm sure you guys know, when you do podcasts, everybody associates it with their ritual of their week, and in your case, almost a daily ritual because of the amount of content you're putting out. But so I'm thinking back and all these images of where I was and where I was running when I hear you do this introduction, and I've never obviously seen it in person. So it's a thrill, an absolute pleasure to see that and to be with you guys.
Thank you. And Taylor Rockwell is also here, as per usual.
I am, as per usual. I don't get the nice rollout, but I'll take that. Is this the first time we've recorded a podcast in person? We've been on stage together, but
we've been on stage together. But yes, in terms of recording a podcast, this will be the first time.
This is rarefied air, literally and figuratively, because we're in Alexi's room.
I don't know about that.
It's
we're in a hotel room we couldn't afford.
We're in the corner hotel room, is what I noticed.
Well, thank you to Rupert, wherever you are.
So, Alexi, we've got listener questions that we're going to put to you today. But first, we wanted to have a little chat about what happened last night. The All-Star Skills Challenge.
The Skills Challenge,
you were there.
Yes.
Wasn't quite clear what was going on, but
neither was I.
You were judging, and you had your arms crossed.
Okay, so they asked us to judge, and if I were to come ask you to judge something, you would think that there would be, because of the way that I just said that, judging involved.
Yeah.
In that, you're judging on something that's happening. In a skills challenge, you would think it would be judging on skills challenge. Come to find out that actually I was there to be a conduit and a vessel to the Twitter folks, because I, as you know, am a man of the people, and oftentimes speak for the people. I was their representative of the Twitter vote that people were able to vote on in that moment, and so I was, like I said, just translating it out in a visual form to everybody there. I would have much rather to have been judging on a continual basis, which is why when they asked me at one point when we were on mic about what I thought, I'm there to give you my honest opinion, and I was.
And your opinion was?
I was underwhelmed and unimpressed.
That was the tone he used, no less.
I was under the assumption that there were professional athletes performing in this, and at least from the first couple of rounds, there was some doubt as to whether these guys were actually professional soccer players.
Yeah, so if people didn't see this, there was they're hitting the targets within the goal for various points, and I would have put my life on Wayne Rooney being accurate, and just if he's going top corner for the number 10 to hit it dead center. Yeah. And for some reason that wasn't happening. These guys couldn't hit volleys that were being crossed in.
A couple of things happened. Number one, just in general, I think that the level of excitement and commitment when it comes to the players going into it was pretty low, and that's that's understandable because it's a brand new type of thing. They don't really know what they're getting into, and especially players that maybe haven't grown up in the U.S. where skills challenges are kind of something that we do. There was a fear, or at least a uncaring of the unknown that was about to come. So I think this is a work in progress. I think it has real potential to be something interesting going forward. They're going to tweak a lot of the stuff that happened this year. So this was, to a certain extent, a soft launch. Although the crowd was great, everybody came out there, and ultimately, by all accounts, everybody had a good time. But I think there needs to be more judging. I think there needs to be more people out there saying yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Maybe some crowd interaction. Maybe we get cheers for what you do.
People are getting into there, and you're professionals coming out, and we want to see what's going on. The other thing is, as you guys know, this is a game of motion, and not perpetual, but lots of motion. And so the timing that's involved when the ball is in play and when there's actually a game going on sometimes is very, very different than the dynamic of just putting a ball down there and having to do it on a consistent basis. So that's not to excuse their poor form at different times, but I think it will only get better as we go along.
But you were on the field with a lot of these guys, the Atleti players as well. What was did you get a sense of how they felt about the overall competition? Were they into it? Were they engaged? Did they just find it kind of weird and curious?
I think there was a curiosity and not a confusion, because it was pretty simple as to what you wanted to do. And so, for example, the crossbar thing at the end, which we saw, which was a way to amass points very, very quickly. I think they're going to have to find a way in the future to limit it. Say you can hit the crossbar only 3 times, or if you do put all the effort into having a golf cart go across with a target on it, you want to make sure that people are at least trying for it. So make it 100 points or something like that.
If people didn't see this, there was a very a really nicely complicated sort of series of targets for players to hit for various points. But then there was a goal frame at the back with the number 25 on the crossbar. Every player, every time, went for the crossbar.
Yeah. I think the idea maybe was like, oh, players want to put the ball in the net, so we'll put up a bunch of different nets and that'll appeal. And it's just like, no, players just want to hit the crossbar.
Koke's not passing 10 yards for 3 points.
Right. Exactly. None of them really wanted to take the easy, consistent type of way of doing that. But, as I said, it's a work in progress. I think it's got some real potential to do some things going forward. And I think it'll look very different next year.
I will say this. I heard from friends in England, they saw clips on Sky Sports News and it kind of went viral in a weird way because it's so foreign to foreign people. They were kind of excited by it.
And I think if those players had to do it over again, knowing what they know now, I think they would approach it differently. Thank God for Mueller from Orlando. At least the kid,
I think he's the one who got it, right?
He got it. He understood that people are there to see these professionals do something. And I know I don't want them to get hurt or anything like that, but he got airborne and actually hit the ball. And he understood that they were there for the entertainment and the performance. And I love that. And so they should have given him some sort of trophy at the end of the day.
The Cash Muller trophy.
Yep. There we go.
That's what Bobby Wilshere was next to us. He kept screaming that every time.
Really?
Every time Muller had a scissor kick or something exciting.
We were we went into it. I think it was a couple of us sitting together, and nobody really was backing Orlando at the beginning of that one. I think only Jason Davis, who talked himself into Orlando before it started, and he ended up being right.
I would have voted for Orlando had I had my own individual vote rather than being the voice of the people. I would have. Yeah, exactly. If I was an elite and a king, and all I cared about was what I said, I would have voted for Orlando specifically because of Mueller. And the other thing I think they're going to have to figure out is the actual service for the volley.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone yesterday about, they have these ball machines that serve, and who knows, maybe in the future they kind of do something like that. But I think they wanted to have a responsibility.
Rob Stone have a machine that he was?
I'm sure he does.
Yeah?
I'm sure Rob has all sorts of crazy stuff. And Rob's been around. I actually, when they had the skills challenge a long time ago before you guys were born, they had it, and Rob worked it. I worked it even at the time. Because I took a year off in 2000, and they ended up having one of the skills challenges there. I remember it was at Spartan Stadium or something like that. And it was so this is not completely new. It has been done in the past, but I think the way that they're going about it right now, very quickly they're going to ramp it up, and it's going to be something special.
I enjoyed the one, looking back at the one from '98, which Rob was explaining.
You watched it last night when we
I
got
did.
home,
He was wearing the teal polo and the Nike shorts with the giant check mark on the butt. I'm sure he enjoyed all the sponsorship there. But I love that they had the equivalent of a long drive competition. That one, how far can you kick the ball? So this one was a little bit further up in the advanced category. My question then is, which of those three from last night do you think you would excel at? It was the one from the penalty mark where you've got all the different ones you can hit to get different points. Yeah, targets is the word I was looking for. Thank you. You've got the cross and volley.
Sponsored by Target.
And then you've got what essentially was the crossbar challenge at the end.
The unintentional crossbar challenge.
I think so. In order of ability, I think that I would excel at the penalty into the targets, into the six targets that they had up there, or 4 in the corners when you're hitting from the penalty spot and stuff like that.
I didn't count, but yeah.
I think that would be first. No, the volleys would be first, the penalties would be second, and the array of different things in terms of long distance crossbar stuff would be third.
And would we have seen you go for the bike if you were out there?
Oh no, I don't get any type of elevation or anything like that. But I can
defensive
hit it. I can really hit it.
You've
hard.
headed them all away.
I just clear it out. It comes in and I just clear it out.
You yell away,
clear my lines, and then I run up to the midfield.
It's a very different sort of skills challenge. How far can you head? We should do that, the headed clearance challenge, and see which defender can get it.
If I was in charge of the skills challenge, I mean, there's threat of injury, but I'd have things like aerial duels, right? I'd toss it up for 2 centre backs to.
What are you, the XFL? You're just trying to hurt people?
Yeah, I think also if they're going to do these team type of incorporate teams and stuff, if you had teams of 5 or something like that, one of the things that everybody does when they're playing soccer is play 5v2, and if you actually had a competitive side of 5v2 as one of the things too, so you get points for obviously the number of passes that you get double points if you put it through the legs because everyone's always screaming and yelling about that, and you would have referees too, so the 2 people in the middle couldn't just come in and crush you or anything like that because they have referees. So I think that would be interesting to see.
And that's less dangerous as well.
5v2.
Yeah, it's less dangerous, right?
Yeah,
so my idea is lawsuits,
but it gets them moving. That was the other thing. There was a lot of stoppages, and so from a physical standpoint, starting and stopping, even though it was 100 degrees outside, players getting warm, I think is important. But the crossing, I think, needs to be better. Was it a technical thing? Because I had an idea that maybe the field was too narrow, so they didn't have enough distance to loft it up, and they were driving crosses in, which made it hard. Yeah, I think they were so concerned with putting it in the perfect place for them, and rightfully so, because you want to have that motion that it's It's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah.
And I think that we were proving that yesterday.
I do want to get to listener questions in a moment, but I have one more skills thing that it's not really MLS related. I feel like U.S. Soccer should do this. They always are okay with making money. I want to see like a skills competition, maybe not 1990, but I want to start with like the 94 World Cup team and do like individual World Cup teams and have them put together 3 or 4 players. Because there have been a lot of former national team players in Orlando, and I've just been noticing how many of them are still in very, very good shape, yourself very much included. Like, we walked past Marcelo Balboa today, Tony Miola's in our hotel, and it was just like, all of you seem like you could still play right now, and I would like to see the skills competition for different World Cup teams.
And it could morph into a senior type of tour, if you will.
There we go. Yeah, like that. There we go. I would do that.
Like the Masters. They do the Masters in England.
The Masters, and send it out. As long as we don't have to run very far, I think everything's going to be fine. But yeah, there's a lot of guys I know that were sitting out. Stuart Holden, for example, it was I know it was killing him that he only could kind of host this thing as opposed to be a part of it. I know he wanted to hit it. So I think there will be a lot of takers if they said, hey, who wants to do this, and put some, maybe team of decades or something like that, or team of 5 years or something like that.
I'm copyrighting this idea right now.
There you go.
It's ours now. It's ours now. Now all we have to do is have the money to do all of these things.
Yeah, we'll work on it. There'll be ads in the show. Maybe we'll save our cash.
That's actually, you thought this was an interview. It's mostly just us pitching you this idea.
Sounds wonderful.
Let's get the checkbook out. We'll see where we go.
It's wonderful. I love it.
Before we get to listening questions, I also want to ask you about tonight, right? Yep. So as we're sitting here, the All-Star game is just a few hours away?
Right.
I'm really interested in sort of, so you're on the broadcast, obviously, what you do to prepare. Like, is there a ream of notes here in this room?
So I'm going to stand up and move over. People are listening. Obviously, you can't see it, but
you made fun of us for having the long mic cords.
No,
now
exactly,
you see what we did.
Now we have the long mic cords. So this is obviously our rundown.
I didn't think I got to see it.
Rundown for tonight. You guys can check it out if you want. We have a Twitter show beforehand. By the time people listen to this, it will be over, right? Everything will be over.
We publish pretty fast. This will be out pretty fast.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're listening to this before you actually watch the actual game, I will come on tonight, and usually to start off a show, you need a kind of a flag post, so when I'm doing stuff, it's why should I stay here? Why shouldn't I change the channel? So boom, this is why. Nothing keeps people's attention more than stars. It's called the All-Star Game. We have stars playing, so you can, if you're listening to it beforehand, you can amaze your friends and say, "Hey, you see that ugly redheaded guy up on the screen? I bet you $100 that the first thing he says out of his mouth is the reason why you should watch this game is because of stars. Zlatan, Vela, Nani, Rooney, Rob Stone, back to you, that kind of stuff. That will be the flag post right off the bat. And so and
you're hoping to just grab someone's attention.
Yeah, that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. And then from there, you go on. We got a lot of different things. We are miking up players. So not only are they mic'd up, but they can hear us on the field. So...
Brad Guzan did it last year.
Guzan is going to be. Wondolowski's going to be have it today. Nani's going to be at some point doing it. Paxton's going to be doing it. So a lot of these players are going to have mics during the game, during warm-ups, and they will be able to hear it. So John Strong and Stu up top that are actually doing the game can talk to him. We can talk to him during warm-ups and do that kind of stuff. So we got a lot of bells and whistles going on. And then, look, this is an advertisement for the league. This is also from a Fox perspective. We're advertising what we're doing in the greater scheme of things. So, for example, we'll have a segment tonight about wrestling, which is a big initiative for Fox going forward. There'll be a wrestler on site. We will be doing that kind of stuff.
You'll be asking him soccer questions? Or?
We'll be asking him wrestling questions within the soccer thing. So look, it's cross promotion. So that's part of the deal. A big game like tonight where people are tuning in, we want to make sure that if there are people that are into wrestling, and there's certainly soccer fans that are wrestling fans too, to understand that this is coming on Fox too. So we're beholden to a lot of different things.
Zlatan versus the wrestler halftime show.
Exactly right.
I think I backed Zlatan on that one.
Maybe, yeah.
I feel like the wrestler's not used to the actual getting kicked in the face. Just these sort of semi-getting kicked in the face.
It was interesting in our production meeting this morning because, we talk about different things and what should we do, blah, 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 blah. And Rob Stone, who has been and done everything, is always about play the hits. Well, there's no bigger hit than Zlatan, especially right now with what's going on. So if Rob Stone had his way, we would come on air with Zlatan. We would then interview Zlatan. Then we would mic Zlatan, and it would be Zlatan all the time. It's not going to be quite like that, but certainly he is a big figure and a legend, and something that makes people want to tune in and see what he's going to do.
Hey, this is Darrell and Taylor cutting into our interview with Alexi with an ad, but don't fast forward because the ad's going to be good.
I agree. Also, I can speak for myself. This is Taylor. Yeah, I say it my own way. In your face.
Good job, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Good job.
I know how to say my name.
What's today's ad? Today's ad is Dollar
Moving right along.
Shave Club, brought to you by people who know how to say their own name.
They certainly do. They even know how to say their own name, and they know how to make quality products, which is a thing we very much enjoy. I should add, I packed my, I always forget if it's a DOP kit or a doc kit. I'm going to say doc kit for the purposes of this conversation.
Excuse me,
the bag that contains all the stuff. They sent us one of those.
Oh, I see.
Inside of that.
Jason Davis and I had this conversation. I call it a wash bag. That's what we call it in England.
That's absurd. You call it the wash bag?
The things that you do are for the washroom, for washing your face, for doing various for washing your teeth.
See, that's the thing. That's
definitely the phrase, right?
Exactly. Washing your teeth right there.
Washing your beard off?
With deodorant? You wash deodorant on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with
I wash my teeth with deodorant.
My doc, and then swallowing the final syllable kit.
No one ever complains that my teeth are sweating. I'm just saying.
There we go. That makes sense. But yeah, we have the Dollar Shave Club doc kit, and then within it, or wash bag, I guess. And within that, there were many Dollar Shave Club products that I brought with me because they make so many good products.
Taylor, I love that we're on the same page. My conceit for this ad was going to be to ask you, what did you pack for our trip to Orlando? Which Dollar Shave Club products did you pack?
I packed the toothbrush that we've spoken about many times. I packed the corresponding toothpaste that we've talked about several times.
Okay.
I brought the face wash because I was relying on the hotel to have the shampoo and conditioner because they're slightly larger bottles. I didn't want to pack those, but the face wash is a nice one. And it's worth noting here that when we do these sort of trips, when we go to All-Star, we go to MLS Cup or the Coaches Convention, we sort of accept the fact that
TSS field trips.
It is, but we accept the fact that it's going to be a combination of very late nights and usually pretty early mornings.
There's a lot of freshening up needs to happen.
Yes, so that's a quick way to put the face rinse on, wash off real fast, and now you can get out and feel a little bit more awake. We went and played soccer today as an example. Yeah. That was a nice way to kind of wake up before going out and running around in 85-degree humidity.
Yeah. I will not give you money for guessing because I think it's a really obvious answer. Which product do you think I packed
The Prep
first?
Scrub?
The Prep Scrub.
You packed the Prep Scrub just in case you need to exfoliate while in Orlando?
I exfoliate every day, my friend. I exfoliate every day. It avoids ingrowing hairs in my stubble.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
All right.
Because what it does, I feel like I explained this multiple times and you keep forgetting.
I zone out what you talk.
Dead skin kind of accumulates between follicles and that's what eventually causes ingrown hairs because it causes blockages. Exfoliate literally means actually, I don't know this for a fact, but I think exfoliate means removing dead skin.
That sounds very made up.
And so you can not only is it healthy, but it feels good as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you're shedding the dead skin. So feel good, look good, play good, which I almost did this morning.
You almost did. You played very well.
No,
Get out of here. But yeah, so you can do all of those things using Dollar Shave Club products. And right now, you can put the quality of Dollar Shave Club's products to the test.
Yeah.
Their ultimate starter sets have basically everything you need for an amazing shower, close shave, or clean teeth. The best part is you could try each one for just $5.
So after that, the restock box ships at regular size products. It ships you regular size products at regular prices. But get your ultimate starter set.
Do it.
For just $5 at dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. That's dollarshaveclub.com/TSS, which by sheer coincidence is the acronym for our podcast. The initialism.
You did your best. You did your best with it.
That's the sad part, right?
So thank you very much to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring today's episode. Yes, it's very sad. That is all from you and me in our hotel room. Let's return to you and me with Alexi Lalas in his hotel room.
We'll be back later with another ad. What about Atletico? Because I've got a feeling that, even though they're obviously a big team, but they're not, say, Juventus, like last year, right? And, Griezmann, who might be the player that everyone knew, is gone. And, personally, I'm excited about João Felix, 126 million euros and all that. But I'm guessing most viewers won't know who João Felix is. So does he get overlooked because he doesn't have the name recognition? Or will you guys try and promote the idea, look out for this kid?
Yeah, he gets overlooked because of the team. And as you mentioned, this is not the sexiest type of name on the surface. And we're supposed to call him Felix. We will be doing that tonight. We were told that that's how we're supposed to go for it.
Who does that come from, by the way?
It comes from our researchers and everybody, and then it's just a kind of a Fox-wide type of thing. Is when we're talking about this player, this is what we're going to do.
So does it come with Felix? It's like a Van Halen, no green M&Ms thing.
No, it's not. We're not trying to be cool. We're not trying to be elitist. I mean, whatever they tell me to do, I'll, not whatever. But if they, in this case, if that's what they want to call him, that's what we'll call him. Although it's spelled Felix. But so to your point, this is a team that's going to compete for La Liga.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a team that they can't cry poor, okay? This is not a little engine that could, despite what Simeone and people want you to believe. That's not the case at all, because when you go out and spend $125 million on the next big thing, and he didn't go to other places and traditionally where other young phenoms would go, that's a good thing. Why is it interesting is because, as you guys know, this team is notorious for being pragmatic, which is code for boring, and more defensive, but certainly effective. So now that they start to have some of these players where they can actually play a more expansive type of style, does Simeone allow them to actually do that? And do they morph and evolve into something much more, dare I say it, entertaining in terms of what they're doing? Or do you have a young player like this that you paid all this money for, and then you put him into a pragmatic, boring, defensive counter type of system? Is that really something that you want to do?
He hasn't been just taught to track back.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. And not for nothing, but even though it's preseason, they're just coming off a slaughtering of Real Madrid.
Yes.
So this is a team that is very, very good. And then you wonder about the MLS players, and individually, and this is the other thing I'll probably say in the open, is that players have a responsibility to themselves, to the team they're representing, to the league. And I think that they take that seriously. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to do things that are going to have them or the league or the team be viewed as negatively. And to a certain extent, it's hard to win in these games for MLS because you beat the team, well, they're in preseason, it wasn't the real team. You lose to the team, how could you not beat a team in preseason? It just shows how far behind you are. So I've been doing this for so long now that people are going to say what they're going to say. As long as it's a celebration, a good time, and there's entertainment, I'm good with it.
Yeah, sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah. Sit back and enjoy it.
Do you have any more All-Star questions, or should we get to listener questions?
I kind of do. It's more about the production side again.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask this. Rob Stone seems like a person who will happily talk about soccer and has opinions on soccer, but he is the person who's tasked with introducing and hosting and throwing to somebody else. Do you think that gets hard for him at times? Like, do you have those moments where you can tell he wants to say something but is instead tasked with keeping the conversation going?
No, because I am consistently trying to get him to actually have more opinions.
Really?
We were talking this morning because few people know that one of Rob Stone's first jobs in soccer back in MLS in 1996 was the color analyst for the Tampa Bay Mutiny. So they are in there. The opinions are in there. And by the way, I'm sitting next to him driving to work, and I hang out with him, so I know that the opinions are there. But I think he does feel that from a TV perspective and between the yacht rock that we're cranking, he wants to make sure that he's being that traffic cop and being that referee at times and bringing the best out of the people that are there traditionally to give their opinion. And I don't think he wants to clutter it up. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with that's the way to go. He's got them. I would love to. I think that hosts, they're a human being there. A lot of them have seen more soccer than even some of the people that they're working with. And I think that their opinion is as valid as anybody. Your opinion is valid as my opinion. I hate this elitist class type of thing where, well, you played, so you must know more. No, everybody watches the game. You understand the game. Are there some little things that maybe you can have more nuance to and understanding? Yes, but I have sat with people that have never played the game, and certainly not, or not played the game at a high level, and they are incredibly informative and incredibly interesting and insightful in the things that they do. And I've also sat with people that have played at the absolute highest level that are absolute morons and don't say anything entertaining or interesting.
I mean, people forget Rob Stone played D1 college, right?
Yeah.
Colgate. So
he's
there you played
go.
at a high level.
He'll tell you.
Yeah.
I would add, though, that while Alexi was saying all that, he is wearing a tie and cufflinks, and Daryl and I are not. So I do think that puts you in the authority position.
This is business on the top and party on the bottom here.
I've just realized, to your point about like Rob being responsible for moving it on, like the thing that you handed me when you said, hey, take a look at what we're doing.
Yeah, it's called a rundown, and it's almost in a different language sometimes.
But it essentially looks like a clock of the entire broadcast. And
to the second.
It is down to the second. I mean, if we did this for our show, we would spend all day doing this and we wouldn't have time to record the show.
I mean, I got overwhelmed when we were doing like kickers broadcasts in Richmond because it was like a couple of those things. That is the most, I mean, that's a full-on Excel spreadsheet of times and places that you have to be.
And it's the best laid plans. Let's be honest. And there's times where we go long and then we have to cut things in real time. You have to say, well, we were going to talk about this, but we're not going to talk about this, or we're going to give you 45 seconds here, but now you're going to have 20 seconds, or you're not going to have anything to say. And so it's a guide, and and you guys know we've been down here for a few days, there are storms that just show up at random times, and so we have to be prepared for the possibility of a lightning delay or something like that, where we're going to have to vamp, and if it goes too long, then we have to go to other programming. So there's a million other things that people behind the scenes are trying to figure out, and it's all within this rundown that is a guide. It's not, we don't always follow it completely, but as you mentioned, from a timing perspective, which is the most important thing, it's in there. And if you go long on one segment, then it's going to you'd have to make it up on a different segment.
So Skycam Katie walks to interview, that could not happen if there's lightning.
It could not happen.
That makes sense. So if it doesn't happen, if you do have to vamp, I imagine that like chemistry is at least a decent part of that. You and Rob obviously have pretty good chemistry. Sure. You don't necessarily have to name names, but I'm assuming there are times when you've worked with a lot of people in a lot of different broadcasts. There are times when probably the chemistry isn't there, or there's awkward moments. Like, how do you deal with that, like you personally? Because for me, it would be like, I think I would always be second guessing, like, that could have been better. Oh, maybe I should engage more. Maybe I should try more. Do you have that, or is it just sort of you're doing your thing and then we're moving on?
I think in this job, because of the turnover and the different people that you're working with, I think you got to be skilled enough as a human being in social interaction to suss out the situation pretty quickly. The person that I'm working with, what makes them tick? What do you need to do to get the best out of them? Have something in your back pocket. So, for example, this summer in the Women's World Cup, I was working with a group that ended up being wonderful, but we were also working with a group where some people had never done TV at all, and some people had done TV, but they'd only done foreign TV. They'd never done American TV. And American TV is an animal unto itself. And it's at times very difficult and frustrating sometimes for people that have done TV elsewhere to figure it out, because it's so short and you have to be able to edit so quickly. And as I said, in real time, and figuring all that out. And as far as the interaction with people, I don't know. I think you're either good at seeing somebody and sizing them up from the start. And so when that moment comes, having a little nugget. Rob's wonderful in having a conversation with somebody. It could be a very, very quick conversation, and immediately seizing upon that one thing that he knows he can have in his back pocket to say, we were talking earlier about blah, 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 and you said this. Can you elaborate on that? And then you're putting that person in a position where he or she is going to be put in a good position, because you've already talked about it to an extent. You know what they are going to say, and you can ask them to elaborate on it. And it's not the worst thing you want to do is throw something at them where they are uncomfortable, and that it's not always bad to be uncomfortable, but where they're uncomfortable, and then it's bad TV if they can't give an answer or something that's satisfying and interesting and entertaining and informative.
Is there? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of giving answers, we should get to listener questions.
We probably
if you have another question, I
do.
If you have time.
I'll keep an eye. Alexi has a heart out, as the broadcast schedule has already indicated. So we'll keep that in mind. But I guess my last question about this, then, and then we can do listener questions. Is there one person that you've particularly enjoyed being on a panel with, or you felt like brings really interesting takes or takes a different perspective?
Let's see. I've worked with a lot of different.
You really have.
I've worked with so many different people. Look. Anytime somebody comes on, and I don't know if that challenges me, but in a direct sense,
I disagree.
No, exactly. But sure you can do that, and that's certainly fine, and I enjoy when that happens. But I like people that challenge me in a way where they make me up my game, and it might not be even something directed at me. It's not as simple as saying, "Well, I disagree with you." It might be them doing something that really, really plays well, and I'm a competitive person, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping up with the people that are around me and being challenged. And you can only challenge yourself so much, so having that external challenge. And so over the years, someone like Michael Ballack.
I was really wondering about that one.
It was a weird thing, because if you had asked me beforehand if that was going to work, I would have said, I don't think this is going to work. And it really worked. And I think specifically it worked because of who he is, number one. The language wasn't a barrier, but obviously he was performing in his second language. And then it's sometimes about appearance and optics and all the different things that he says, and it was a little serendipity in the way that it worked, and it was fun, and he understood it. I think you have to be in. It's not a joke, but you have to be in on what's going on and recognize what's going on, and then you mine that thing for all that it's worth, and go forward. So I had a wonderful time working with him. When I first worked with Ian Wright is a really interesting guy in terms of the way he's actually one that Michael got frustrated at times with American television. Ian Wright, I think, really, really enjoyed it because he was coming from an English side of it where they have all sorts of time to talk, and we were like, no, this is what we're going to talk about. This is how much time we're going to talk about, and so you better have your you-know-what together when we get going. And he loved that. He also loved that, I think he felt that oftentimes they get into the weeds and a lot of stuff, and they get too X's and O's about things, and we wanted to bring as many people into the tent as possible. And so he was able to talk in a more expansive type of way about what was going on as opposed to just specific type of things.
Yeah, he's the one on English TV. He's always manages to... He's actually, in a weird way, similar to you, where he has the knack of like just saying the one, crystallizing the thing in a quite short way that will get people's backs up, but in a good way. It's like a strong opinion expressed in very few words.
Yeah. I mean, I was speaking at a broadcasting school yesterday that's here in the Orlando area, and they were asking me about different things, and I'm making it up as I go along too, and making mistakes as I go along too. But one thing I have,
you meant the remarks. You were just making it up as you went
along. Well, I definitely was making up the remarks, but this entire thing, I'm making it up as I go along. I like to think that I've gotten better, but I still have a long way to go. But one of the things I have learned is the ability, as I said beforehand, and then maybe even more importantly in real time, to be able to edit yourself and to be efficient in the words that you choose, so that you're able to plant those flags and those signposts and say this, because that's what people remember, and you can elaborate on it later on, but less is more in television when you're talking about things.
All right.
Are
you ready?
I feel like I've done this is my final question enough times. So yeah, let's get to some listener questions instead.
All right, so we have all kinds of listener questions to choose from. If everybody's okay with it, I am going to start with...
Are you just going to scroll through and find one?
Carl Gertz's question.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
I like it.
So again, this is kind of for all of us, but we're going to address it first to our guest, Mr. Alexi Lalas. If you were to be appointed manager of a historic US men's national team whose results disappointed, for example, 1998...
Yes.
2006, 2018, you were tasked with rewriting history to get a better result. Which year would you choose, and what tactics or formation would you deploy to achieve a better result? I'm going to assume your answer is 1998.
It would be 1998, although I will. It's better to have gone to a World Cup and sucked than never to gone to a World Cup at all. And last summer, it was not good. It was not good in the moment, and it was not good for soccer. And we're still feeling, I say we, ultimately the team, but we as a soccer-playing nation are still feeling the effects of it.
I think Berhalter's suffering for it. Like, his reputation, weirdly, with fans is down because
the way the
they
team
didn't
is
qualify
perceived,
before he was there.
The way the team is perceived, the amount of people that come to the games, the amount of media coverage, all of that has suffered, and it's up to him to win those hearts and minds back. But as far as 1998 goes, we know the fiasco that existed back there. I think it was an incredible wasted opportunity. And if one thing pains me is that we wasted that. And I say we because we're all at fault for what happened there. And so to be able to go back and, the coaching situation at that point determined, with Steve Sampson at the helm there, determined that they wanted to change things in the World Cup, basically, and leading up to the World Cup. And I would change things in that I think you dance with the ones that brung you and the ones that had been successful. And you gave that 94 team 4 more years of maturation. Keep in mind, when I stepped on the field in 1994, I had never been on the books of a club team.
Yeah. You were contracted to US Soccer to play in those.
We had played for 2 years as internationals, and so I did it really backwards, and myself and Kobe and others did it backwards, where usually you go to a club team, you play well, you get recognized with the national team, you go to the national team, you play well, and you go on from there. All my experiences is why we all have all those crazy amounts of caps for my generation.
Right.
So I would love to go back and to see what that 98 team would look like if that core was allowed to actually be on the field. I mean, there was a point there where myself and Marcelo Balboa and Tab Ramos and Eric Winalda and all guys, I'd look down the bench, we were all sitting there on the bench. It would have been nice to see what it would look like if you would let that kind of play itself out at the ultimate moment in that World Cup in '98.
And tactically, wasn't there an issue where...
this 3-6-1 and all that kind of stuff that Steve changed to. And that would be part and parcel. Don't change it going into the World Cup and all that.
So I've heard Ronaldo talk about how the team was really aggressive, but then at the World Cup, maybe just the idea was, we need to back off a little bit because these guys are so good.
We would have liked a little bit more romance and belief that, you know what, come hell or high water, this is who we're going to be, and if we fall flat on our face, at least we're doing it in the way that got us to that World Cup.
Yeah,
gonna make it slightly awkward. If you were the manager of that team, would you also like assign a personal accountability buddy to John Harkes, so maybe like things don't get quite so sideways in terms of him not being on the squad anymore?
No, I would have said you guys figure it out. It's not it's not my problem or my business unless it's going to affect my job or what we're doing here. And I think if I've always said when it comes to that situation, I wouldn't have cared. It's none of my business, to be quite honest.
Right.
And it's amazing what players will put up with in order to win. John Harkes, I wanted him on my team because he made the team better. Okay? And who you are as a person, yes, it matters. And I wish everybody's kumbaya and running around and having a good time, but I'm going to let you in a little secret. That doesn't happen even for the best teams in the world. But I would have liked to have been in a situation where we had the best possible players there that made up the best possible team.
Actually, if you don't mind, not necessarily about the '98 team, but just in general, that's a question I've wondered. Is like a lot of the teams we play on is like they're composed of our friends and people we know and people from that soccer community. And even if you're not, if you don't like get along, you're not best friends with all of them, you're at least kind of cordial with them, and you don't spend every day with them. How disruptive can that be, and how do you get past that? If you have new people coming into a locker room and it seems settled, but then somebody else comes in and now it's a little bit changed, or like in the case of the U.S. at times, and you've got the German Americans coming in and that can throw stuff off. Like, is it just the case that the will to win really kind of supersedes everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're in a very high competitive type of environment. These are all individuals that throughout their, not their just careers, but probably lives, have been very competitive and want to win. And when you want to win, as I said before, it's amazing what you will accept and deal with in order to get get that win. When I look at that team, as I said, you don't, and I wasn't friends with everybody. And I would love, as I said, to be in a situation where we all got along and we all related in a way, but that wasn't the case at all. And it wasn't I was putting up with people necessarily, but I recognized that I was very, very different than this person. But ultimately, I just need that person to do their job on the field. Now, I don't want them being an asshole off the field to me, because that can. And I'm not saying that dynamics in a team aren't important, and having a positive, healthy type of relationship and work environment isn't important. It absolutely is. But a positive, healthy work relationship and environment doesn't necessarily mean that you like everybody or you agree with everything that people do or say.
Yeah, Teddy Sheringham, Andy Cole. Remember that whole thing at Manchester United? They wouldn't even speak to each other, and yet they won the treble.
Yeah,
right. And they're
I don't think there was a situation where players wouldn't speak to each other.
Yeah,
and if it was, extreme, we were a bunch of assholes, to be quite honest. I take that back. We were a bunch of within ourselves. Like we would have called that out. We would have dealt with you're being a jerk, and it would have.
That's good. There's an honesty to that.
It would have manifested itself in a bar somewhere, and then we would have sorted it out. It wasn't a lot of drama.
Ready for the next question? You've got one queued up, Ted.
I think I do. Ryan LaRose asks, or says, I guess, in the interview where Zlatan said he was a Ferrari among Fiats, he also responded when asked if MLS will ever reach the levels of Europe or South America. He said, quote, "In Europe, I can pick 2 clubs that make money. The rest don't. They do it out of passion. Here with the sport, you make money. That's it." That's harsh. And I think with all the rules you have here, you are not boosting up the soccer, end quote. Is he right? Asks Ryan.
Is he right about what? I mean, he basically, in a nutshell, just explained the irrational type of business that goes on when it comes to most leagues around the world, which is the exact same thing that MLS is working against or to not do. And it was interesting. I don't know if you heard Don Garber when asked about Zlatan the other day, and I can't remember who did it. I'm sorry, I'm not attributing it to whoever did the interview, but he was talking about Zlatan and said he loves Zlatan and everything like that, but like a lot of times this is a person talking that is not privy to all of the details and the realities of the business that he is playing for. And so I think he, in a strange way, was pointing out the realities of the business that exists around the world, but I don't want this to be a charity. I don't want this to just be a situation where you come into it and you lose money. You can you can be passionate about something and want to be involved in something and still recognize that you have a fiduciary responsibility to other, if it's a public thing, obviously a public thing, or if you have a group of people that are part of it, you're responsible to them. So I think he painted a very graphic picture. And by the way, Zlatan benefited from a competitive standpoint by always being on those two teams that he's talking about,
that's worth noting.
And surrounding himself with the best players, because they hedge their bets by doing that. And then you have the haves and the have-nots. And Zlatan has always been on the haves as opposed to the have-nots, which is why it's so interesting to see him in an MLS situation where the parity relative to leagues around the world is completely different, and obviously it's manufactured.
I think I agree with that because, yes, you can make arguments about Major League Soccer being like a little like the MLS All-Star Game presented by Target as an example. But like you can see those examples of maybe a little bit corporateness. But his argument then that like Europe doesn't have that anymore is what I find particularly frustrating, because I think in a lot of ways that goes back to the age-old, like, oh, Europeans, it's about the beauty of the game and how wonderful it all is. And here in America, it's like, really? Like, I'm pretty sure the Glazers on Man United, yes, they're American, but, like, they're not doing it for the love of the game. They're doing it to make money. They're doing it to be able to print money, basically. And I think a lot of Premier League clubs are the same.
I came out with a podcast today, and I was talking about Zlatan, and I put it in the context of his elbow from the other day. But it applies to what you're talking about here, because he, I think, in many ways, is both talking and playing in an antiquated way. And therefore, he is, I know he calls himself the lion, but the reality is what he's painting himself as is a dinosaur. In the way that he plays the game, in terms of at some point either you evolve or you go extinct, right? And the way that he looks about the game, looks at the game, especially from a business perspective. It is, and by the way, it is big business all over the place. And to suggest that it's not, or that it shouldn't be.
He has his own clothing company. Let's just throw that one out there real fast.
It's naive, and at best it's naive. At worst, it's disingenuous because he knows fully well about the business that exists around the world. Now, I love that. I love that he talks. I love that all the stuff that he does. But you have to be able to evolve, and you have to be able to change. And just because you liked the way the game was run or played, either from a competitive or from a business perspective in the past, doesn't mean that it's going to continue to be that, and doesn't mean that you get to say it should be that, because it's going to go the way that it's going to go. And either you evolve and change with it, or, as I said, you become a dinosaur and you become extinct.
And speaking of becoming extinct, like maybe Zlatan is not so aware of, the history of soccer in the United States and the leagues that have, spent money, like NASL in the 70s and 80s, and then gone out of business, right?
Well,
part of the MLS thing of not spending money irresponsibly is it originates with the idea of making sure this thing survives and grows and doesn't accidentally collapse in on itself.
He would not be the first professional athlete to speak from a position of lack of knowledge or history or understanding when it comes to the business of the sport.
It's Daryl and Taylor interrupting again.
Hooray.
We still know how to say our own names.
We do.
My name's Daryl. Your name is?
Steve?
No! Taylor.
Am I Alexi?
Nice try, though. Nice try.
Am I tall? No.
You are not quite as tall as Alexi. Yeah.
That's definitely true. As you know, I am Taylor, and I am with Daryl to talk about today's sponsor, Policy Genius, our friends over at Policy Genius. These days, a lot of workplaces offer some pretty nice perks. A snack station, 15 flavors of soda water, even insurance. But while it's nice to have
do we have those at Total Soccer Show?
We sometimes do. We sometimes have a snack station, and that we have like a large bag, like a large container of trail mix or something like that.
We have a shop around the corner that we go to.
We do. That's
our snack station.
That's our snack station, yes. Well, it's nice to have a handful of trail mix and some water that tastes faintly of pamplemousse.
Big fan of the pamplemousse.
Shots at LaCroix. That's not enough to subsist on, and neither is your workplace life insurance. This is where Policy Genius comes in.
So it's the easy way to shop for life insurance online. Yep. In minutes, you can compare quotes from top insurers to find the right amount of coverage at the best possible price.
I want to go back to I want to work at one of these places that has a snack station and 15 flavors of water. Is that a thing?
We could do that if you want.
I feel like that's
Google. If that's what your heart wants.
Is it just a normal thing now?
We can get a snack station.
I don't know, because then
and a ping pong table.
Then I have to worry
foosball.
about Daryl's hatred of cucumber. I have to find out if there are cucumbers or pickles in any of the products. Yeah, and it could be a whole thing.
The no cucumber snack station. That's what we want.
That works. But say you're okay with the snack station at work, but instead you want to focus on maybe the life insurance options. Policy Genius in minutes can get you quotes that you can compare from top insurers to find the right amount of coverage at the best possible price.
I'm glad you repeated that copy point that
yes,
I already said. So remember, workplace life insurance policies are like workplace snacks. Better than nothing, but not quite enough. I feel like they haven't seen the snack station I'm imagining. It's going to be more than enough.
I like that we're talking about your theoretical snack station. That's good. I'm sure...
I mean, theoretical for now. It's going to happen in, 2 weeks' time?
I'm sure our friends at Policy Genius are loving that. So yeah, you can head to policygenius.com today and find out how to supplement your workplace life insurance and better protect your family.
Policy Genius, it's like a buffet made of life insurance. And what could be more delicious than that? Eat up the life insurance at policygenius.com.
You should do that. Now, thank you very much to Policy Genius for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back for one more time to our conversation with Alexi Lalas.
All right, we got time for another question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. Alexi, when you have the hard out, please
I'm fine.
Don't be shy about letting us know. Good. We don't want to make you late for the Fox podcast.
Absolutely not. This is the most important thing in my life right now.
Oh, by the way, you mentioned your podcast. We should let people know, State of the Union.
State of the Union, it's back. We took a little hiatus. As you guys know, being the podcast experts that you are, the truth out there that we all know in the conventional wisdom is that you have to have a consistency, and that's what garners your listeners, and that ritual we talked about that people associate with their lives. So we bucked that and said, all right, we're going to take a couple months off.
But we had a whole World Cup.
We did. We had a World Cup, so there was a reason why it happened. But we're back, and so if anybody out there listens to it, I appreciate it. And if anybody doesn't, you can check it out. It's as we say, a look at the beautiful game through the lens of red, white, and blue color glasses.
All right, and it's available wherever you listen to this. Search for State of the Union.
All of it, yeah.
And you'll find it. Next question comes from Kai Weitinger. So Taylor, I'm excited to ask this because we've had this question ready to ask for a little while, but we've been almost nervous about answering it.
Oh boy.
All right.
It's more so it's one of those that feels like it needs a lot of research, so we're just going to throw it at you right now.
Yeah.
We'll answer it like Zlatan. No research, no context, no understanding, no appreciation for anything. Okay, here we go.
Kai asks, how did this seemingly giant gap between the USA and Mexico, I'm assuming national teams is what he's talking about, arise? Well, first of all, do we agree that there's a gap?
Yeah, I think it's valid and fair to say that there is a gap.
Yeah.
If for nothing else, that Mexico qualified for the last World Cup, and the U.S. men's team did not qualify for the last men's World Cup. And so, but I've been around long enough to know where this back and forth of the gap has existed. And there was a time where we talked about the gap. I remember hashtagging the gap, so it's within the Twitter age. I remember saying, the gap, and there was this gap, and Mexico's going to leave us behind. And then it completely changed, and we had beaten Mexico. And a lot of it has to do with Gold Cup and qualifying, and did we win? We had a 2-0 within there, and all of those are different things. So it goes back and forth. The pendulum has swung back again, where there is indeed a gap between Mexico and the U.S. I don't think it's as gappy as people will make it out to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and is it concerning? It is, in that they, from a proximity and soccer perspective, are our biggest and closest rivals right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's something that is so. I don't think it's insurmountable in terms of not just lessening that gap, but then having that gap go the other way. If we qualify and finish first in the group, and then get out of our group and go farther than Mexico, then we'll be sitting here saying, there's a gap. It's the other way. And, Mexico, that's really having problems.
So it's not the Grand Canyon. It's
definitely not.
It's more like the little gap when you get off the London
It's a gap. It's a gap. Mind the gap.
Mind the gap, but don't be too concerned about it. But why is it there right now? I'm going to throw a theory at you, and I think... I don't have a full explanation for the background for this, but I think it's a generational thing. I think Brian Sciaretta, I'm sure you're aware of his story they wrote for American Soccer Now a while back about the missing generation. And I think the ages line up, that same generation is the Mexico team that won gold at the 2012 Olympics, right? So it's literally, I think, a generational thing. So to me, the question is not so much why do Mexico have that talented generation. The question is why does the US have that missing generation?
Right.
That's what we're suffering through right now, because the future looks bright, right? I think there's a lot of kids that we're all excited about right now. You mentioned Paxton Palmercal earlier. Alex Mendes just signed for Ajax. There's all this stuff happening. But why is there this missing generational gap right now? I don't have the answer. I'm just throwing it out there to see if anyone has any ideas.
My answer would be, as pretentious as it's about to sound, that like nuance is hard, and that like I think right now, like if you want to go into it about like why is there like a relatively like not as deep talent pool as we would like to see. I was gonna say relative talent like gap, but whatever. Basically, I think it's that like if you want to go into that about like okay, well then there's like there's this failure at like U17 level and this failure to qualify for this, but like that gets kind of complicated and challenging.
Because then the question is why does that?
Yeah, and so I think in the end,
my parents
it's
just kid, but why?
Yeah, and exactly. And so I think in the end, it's just easier to cut it off and say like, oh, we're just not good enough, and we don't produce enough players, and the system is wrong. And I think like you can have qualms about like the system in US and pay to play and all that stuff, but I think a huge part of it is just that there's a lot of like multifaceted aspects that come from being a very large country that has a lot of different competing interests when it comes to soccer.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right that it's that sort of the failure to qualify for a lot of competitions at youth level. You're seeing the ramifications of that now.
Yeah.
It's how you
There's
deal
like
with
the warning signs.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. That's the.
Could we blame development academies? I don't mean blame it, but I mean there's essentially been a huge change in how the entire thing is operated in the last 10, 12 years. And maybe is it possible that the missing generation that we talk about is essentially just the growing pains of the US soccer development academy system? But now it's kind of coming good, right? Because all these kids that we're enjoying seeing now are the fruits of a more successful looking development academy system.
Maybe. I think you've hit on something in that the landscape of soccer right now in the United States looks very, very different than obviously it looked 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, I grew up where my parents would read us Aesop's Fables. I don't know if you've heard of these, but the fables out there. And there's this one about this farmer and his son going to town on a donkey, and at one point he puts his son on the donkey and rides to the town, and people on the side say, you know, why to the son, why are you having your father walk alongside? And so they change, and the father gets on, and they start walking. And then somebody else screams from the outside, well, why do you have the father walking when the poor son is on it? So then they both get on the donkey, and people are screaming, how can you do that to the poor donkey? And they go to town, and they're taking the donkey to town to sell him. And so they get off, and they carry the donkey, and then they trip, and the donkey falls into the river and get washed away. And the moral of the story, obviously, is that if you try to be something, if you try to please everybody, you ended up pleasing nobody at all. And I think we have, of recent years, we've tried to be everything to everybody. And while that is, to a certain extent, admirable because of what we are, I think that going forward, and this goes to your point of Development Academy, we have so many different styles and philosophies and thoughts, and now so many different pathways that lead all over the place that it's become maybe even in a strange way more complicated. Now, that's not a reason to go back and to become what we once were, but I think that there is a strange element of, in the past, it was easier to organize when we just said, this is the way we're going, and we were, and I know this isn't a good word, and I've talked about this before, at times we were more exclusive as opposed to inclusive. And I know when you're not inclusive from a country standpoint, that people go crazy like that. And that's not what I'm suggesting at all. I just think maybe in the past, in a strange way, while it was more exclusive, it was easier. That's not a reason to continue to do that, but is maybe a reason why we are going through these growing pains. We'll come out of it the other end, and I think we'll come out of it better.
So we just suffered through the transition.
Yeah, it's just a real big transition. I mean, what soccer is today compared to what I was playing in and certainly what I was growing up in, it is night and day. And it means that everybody's got an opinion and everybody's got a way of doing things, and there's so many more opportunities and resources out there that actually putting together 23 players to represent this great nation of ours has become, in strange way, more difficult or more challenging. I don't know if it's more difficult, but it's certainly more challenging. And once we get through those challenges and kind of figure it out, I think we'll be better off. And then just to follow up on the Olympic part of it, you know, we haven't had that opportunity. You talked about what Mexico did. Yeah. We haven't had that opportunity. I came from the Olympics. Myself, Kobe Jones, Brad Friedel. We all matriculated out of the 92 Olympic team to play on the 1994, and then obviously guys went on to 98 and 2002. But that group was together in '92 in the Barcelona Olympics, and then played on the '94 team, as was, say, an Eddie Pope in the '96 Olympics that then played on the national team. And so having that as a pathway and using it, and we've failed, we've wasted those opportunities, I think is key going forward.
What is the, I mean, I can take a guess, but I'd prefer to hear it in your words. What's the value of going to the Olympics in terms of how it prepares you for, say, going to a World Cup, right? Because the World Cup is just a much higher profile soccer event. Right? But there's got to be some value to going to the Olympics. So I'm interested to hear like what you gained from it.
I think, well, first off, you go through a qualifying process, unless you're hosting it. But if you go through a qualifying process, understanding and going through those types of games and those types of players and those types of opponents is crucial to understanding what qualifying is in our area.
Right.
Secondly, look, we are judged ultimately by how we do in a World Cup. And it is a mini type of World Cup. So you understand how group play works. You understand how researching and understanding your opponents is going to play into how well you do. All of that kind of stuff. Understanding how to be a tournament type of soccer player is important. And it is sometimes gained over time. And the more opportunities you have to be in that type of environment of, all right, this is the end game of qualifying and getting there and doing well, which is a very different type of mentality than in a club type of situation. So the more opportunities you get like that, the better off you are. And then playing different nations and playing different types of styles and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good thing.
Is there value to learning to spend an entire month with the same 20-plus group of guys?
Sure, absolutely.
And not let things fall apart?
Yep, all of that kind of stuff. The dynamics that we were talking about earlier, they start to manifest, and you start to understand even what we were talking about. You might understand, okay, I don't necessarily like this person or hang out with this person, but I like having him on my team because he can do the job, and I'm good. And we don't hang out together all the time, but this is a person that I want on my team.
All right.
I've got at least one more that I think is slightly simpler.
Yeah, should we go one more and then we'll give Mr. Lalas time to literally put his pants on so he can go to the broadcast?
I suppose so. David Powell asks, I'm suddenly noticing the bumps on players' backs. I assume it is a monitor of some sort. Do you all know what it is monitoring?
So I never played with them, but it is. It's monitoring everything. It's monitoring. A lot of times it's how far the players are running and the types of sprints they are and at what speed they're doing. And it's fed into a computer, and then it's spit out in terms of the analytics and that informs either what happened in that day, and it may be a reason why either someone did well or poorly. You might look to it and say, okay, this is where you were suffering, and they can break it down into periods in the game, all that kind of stuff. Or it can be in terms of recovery. Well, this is what this guy did, and he overloaded here, and here, and either we can work on that to not have that happen, or we recognize it happened, and therefore we have to tailor his training habits and or his intake and fluids and food and all that kind of stuff. So it's amazing what they look at right now and what they monitor now in order to get the slightest advantage out there.
And
so,
I understand it to be a mix of like physical health type things, as in heart rate and all that, plus just tactical stuff in terms of literally your GPS location on the field. Yeah, those things do everything.
I think this is how out of it I am when it comes to like statistics and analytics, is that in my mind I get all of that, everything you just said, and I'm still like, but why?
Like, does it feel like an overwhelming amount of data? Like if you put that data in front of me, I just would not know where to start.
Well, yeah, it's like okay, so that guy needs to run harder and like from 60 to 65. Like, is that part of your game plan?
I guess they have professionals that are experts in this.
If you get
very true,
that's why they don't hire us to do
exactly.
But ultimately, data from one game isn't going to do you any good. But eventually, if you are to accumulate something for, I don't know, who's playing tonight, like Diego Chara or something like that, if you recognize that when this team does well, there's a correlation between the amount of running he does, the places that he runs, and even, I don't know, the day game versus night game, whatever it ends up being. That's what these people are there to do, to crunch those numbers, to use the analytics, to use the numbers that they have to give you some sort of edge. And you can have an advantage as a player. I had rookies track my every touch. They would sit on the sideline, and I would say, "You need to."
You asked them to do it.
Yeah. I'd say, "You sit on the sideline," because this was back in the day where we didn't have a paper and pen. We were writing on tablets. No, it was because I wanted to know how many times I lost the ball, and as a center back, I knew that I couldn't be losing the ball. If I was losing the ball 2 or 3 times a half, that's a bad thing. That's not something that I want to do. But we weren't tracking them from a team perspective, and so I would have people look at it, or I would do it myself post game. I would look at the tape and do all that kind of. So I would have loved to have had this type of analytics, because I think I would have used it. Does it always tell the full story? Well, I don't think it ever tells the full story, but it can give you a good idea of what the story is. And if you amass enough of it, you can come to understand, I am best when I am doing X, Y, and Z.
So if the rookies were telling you you've lost the ball 3 times,
right,
was there more information than that? Like, was it specific areas of the field you're losing it in, and then you know to do something
No,
different?
because I knew when I lost the ball,
yeah,
in terms of that moment, but I wanted to have actual numbers.
Okay.
Because I knew, I'm not talking about, a long, hopeful ball or something that's lost like that. Okay, that's a loss of possession. But if I'm losing a simple ball out of the back, that's not a good thing. And then I would match it up.
That will cover you anyway.
Yeah, I would match it up with with the actual video out there. So now they just put something on the back, and it just spits out all the data for them.
All right,
it's easy.
Now rookies get to actually play and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah,
they're not frantically trying to track all the touches. That's good. That's good. Well, Alexi, we really do appreciate you taking all the time, for having us over, and for letting us disrupt your day. I am sort of in awe of you and folks like you who at these events are just like, oh yeah, I've got 20 minutes here, come on by. And it's like, you have 20 minutes free today? Like, that's insane to me that you spend 5 straight days like just doing stuff. That sounds
this is
exhausting.
I live an incredibly privileged and charmed life in terms of what I do. I'm very, very lucky. I do not take it for granted. And I love what I do, and I don't want to do anything else. And so this is nothing. It's certainly, it doesn't compare to 99.99999% of the world out there. And so I want to keep doing it as long as I possibly can. But as I tell you guys each and every time, I love the fact that you are part of the soccer family and everything that you do. And while people like myself often get a lot of kudos and pats on the back and credit for what's happening, I am well aware that it's people like you and men and women that have come before, that are working right now, people we know, people we don't know, in front of camera, behind the camera, all over the place.
Right? Not the Cooligans.
Definitely not the Cooligans.
I think the intro to their show would disagree.
Definitely not them. But everybody. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's wonderful to hang out with you guys in a live capacity, and it makes my runs coming up when I'm going to hear your voice in your intro that much more vivid.
That is genuinely very sweet and does mean a lot, except that, listeners, he was saying that while looking straight at Daryl and gesturing at Daryl the entire time. So I feel like that was Daryl is very valuable, and then Taylor.
I mean, that thing on your face at times, as someone who is of the beard and the facial hair, it is. I mean, it's got a life of its own now.
It does.
This is.
I don't even grow it anymore.
It just exists. It's just full. Yes. I mean, I feel like you're using rich oils to make it look. You
are correct. Oh. That's how you make it.
There should be a Dollar Shave Club ad somewhere.
We have to put that one in there now. Yeah,
awesome.
People with beards, put stuff in it. Otherwise, they smell. That's how it works.
That's
how it works, man. That's how it works.
All right, we will close by saying, Alexis, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
Taylor Rockwell, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah,
and listeners, thank you for listening to the Total Soccer Show. I've forgotten how we close the show. Thank you for listening.
Have you ever done this before? Jesus, you're horrible.
It's my first time. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again very soon.
There it is.